Happy Fermented Friday. I'm Jim with the Brewers Association of Maryland and Grow Fortify. Before we jump into today's chat, I just wanted to let everybody know that it's the first Friday of February. We're very excited about celebrating that today. If you haven't made your plans yet to support this great weekend with Maryland beer, go out, find your favorite brewery, find out how you can buy their beer, whether it's at your most local retailer or at that brewery's tasting room. There's tons of options. Keep in mind, delivery is an option for many breweries in the state. You can get beer shipped to you from breweries that are offering that. So find out what your favorite brewery is doing and see how you can support them this weekend. Also, I apologize. In the intro video there, it looked like there was still a panel suggesting that our legislative committee is on this. They are not going to be included in this chat. This is a chat all about women in our industry, and we have 4 women with us right now that are excellent trendsetters in what's going on. They're excellent representatives of this association and of our membership, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with them. But before we jump into that, I did want to just announce that there was a fundraiser announcement for new BAM glassware that went out this afternoon. Check those glasses out. They're on our Instagram and Facebook pages. Really, really cool glassware that some local artists have contributed to in an effort to help the Brewers Association of Maryland do some fundraising in lieu of events this year. Jump on those. beerme.com/store/BAM. You can check out the glassware there. Really good pricing, really cool glasses, and really great artwork. So enough of the pitch. Let me go ahead and introduce our guests. I'm going to start with Sarah Healey. She's the president of BAM, and she's with Union Craft Brewing. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Jim.
Thank you for joining me this afternoon. Next, we will introduce Cindy Mullikin from Mully's Brewery. Cindy is the former president of BAM, now a board member at large, kind of hanging out, helping everybody out. Cindy, how are you this afternoon?
Doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing great, thank you. Going to introduce Judy Verratti, who's been a board member at BAM, previous vice president of the association, lots of roles, lots of hats, sits on the Brewers Association subcommittee or board.
I'm on the board and also chair the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee for the BA.
That's right. And you just got announced as some committee member for Brewbound or something, didn't you?
I was named the 2020 Beer Champion of the Year, which was pretty cool.
Beer Champion?
Yeah.
Check you out.
Yeah, they sent me like a super fancy, like crystal looking thing that I put on my mantle. I got a trophy. It's the first one I've had since probably high school, so I'll take it. Cool.
And I would also like to introduce Trey Watts from Patuxent Brewing Company, Charles County's first brewery, right?
Hey everyone, how are you doing today?
Doing well, Trey. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
So most of the viewers that have tuned into these Fermented Friday talks are really familiar with kind of the format that we go through, which is introduce a brewer or a brewery owner, talk about the history of your brewery, and share some beers and talk about the beer that you're drinking or the beer that you're featuring. Today, I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to kind of learn a little bit more about this industry from the perspective of people that not every craft beer drinker thinks about the first time they think about a brewery. I think I look a lot more like the people that people expect to see at a tasting room or in a brewery than any of you. And I think that that's not a representation that's totally true. So if we can kind of go around the horn, everybody maybe jump in, raise your hand, however you'd like, kind of introduce yourself a little bit, talk about the brewery that you're in and what brought you there, and then we can kind of come back and discuss a little bit more. You want to start with Sarah?
Yeah, sorry, I keep muting myself because it's really loud in here. Like Jim said, my name is Sarah Healey. I'm the president of the Brewers Association, and I'm also the HR manager at Union Craft Brewing in Baltimore. I'm new to this role. Previously was the general manager at Milkhouse Brewery at Steel Point Farm, Maryland's first farm brewery. So I kind of have a broad, I've had a broad assignment in beer. I started out my journey in craft beer, getting into the industry about 6 years ago. I left corporate America and started working full-time at a liquor store down the street from my house. Shout out to the Mount Airy Liquors crew. I'm sure most of you on here, if you're in the Carroll, Frederick County area, know them. And I had a really great experience there, just getting to really learn so much about beer, kind of the ins and outs of the 3-tier system in Maryland. I feel like my time there was absolutely invaluable. So definitely have unloaded a bunch of trucks, stocked a lot of shelves, but I had a really great time doing it. Then I was doing some sales for Milk House. Loved that. Eventually was able to take over as GM when Abby, who's on the Grow Fortify staff, left. Hi, Abby. And had a really wonderful time there. And then most recently transitioned to this role. So, hey there. I definitely have been extremely fortunate to have worked for businesses that have put women in leadership roles. I have always felt really welcome in the industry by my peers, both male and female. And I rely on a lot of support from a lot of people, including some of the women on this panel today, have really helped shape kind of what I've been doing. So yeah, really glad to be here.
How about you, Cindy?
So I'm with Mully's Brewery, co-owner with my husband. We opened our doors October 2013, and typical story. We started as home brewers, fell in love with making beer and of course drinking beer. And at the time that Southern Maryland was really underrepresented with breweries, so we thought it could be an opportunity. And when we were in the planning stages, the Craft Brewers Conference, CBC, was being held in Washington, D.C. I think it was like March or April that year. And my husband suggested I go to one of the Pink Boot Society meetings because they were having a meeting at the conference. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll check it out. And I went, and all of a sudden I'm in this room packed with women in the brewing industry. And I'm not talking about like a little classroom. This is like a big banquet hall, and it was awesome. And I got to hear some amazing speakers, and the brewing industry is already a very supportive industry in and of itself. And then when you add a subunit to it, it seems even more so. And that's what I've gotten out of it. And I appreciate everybody that I've had the privilege of interacting with. I always learn something from everybody I meet. And I think it's been a great experience.
Trey, you want to tell us about opening your brewery and what kind of went into it for you?
Sure. I mean, essentially, I actually come from an environmental philanthropic background. However, Davey, the brewer here and the founder, him and I have been friends since high school. And we've always talked about, our love of beer as we gotten older. He's been brewing forever in his basements, on balconies, wherever he could. And so I essentially just wanted to do my piece to be on that business side to really bolster his product. And by doing that, we were able to open our doors here in 2019. So we are very fresh. We are very new on the scene. But again, because of the area we're in and because of people such as Cindy, who has been a lifesaver to us, just not just with information, but even giving us cans when we need it. I mean, anything we've asked for, she has been there for us, tried and true. And a lot of the other women in the brewing scene in Maryland have done the same. So, we thankfully are in an area where we have that support no matter what we look like. They are here for us, and they're like, what can we do to make sure that you're a success? And that's what I've gotten from Maryland. That's what Davey's been able to get from this scene here. So again, it's not just it's easy to say, women supporting women, but she's doing a lot to support everyone who works here and everyone who, our customers, who will benefit from her helping us as well. So I'm just proud to be part of a state that has such an amazing brew scene.
That's awesome. And Julie, you opened one of the first women-owned breweries in the state at Denizens in Silver Spring. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what brought you into the industry and what you were doing as kind of a trailblazer for everybody?
Sure. Well, first, thanks for asking me to be a part of this, Jim. This is I always enjoy doing chats like this. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I also just want to state for everybody, little known fact about leadership in Maryland beer. Two of the folks on this show right now, Cindy and Sarah, Sarah's the current president of the Brewers Association of Maryland, and Cindy is the immediate past president. So the last few years, BAM has been completely led by women, both as president and vice president, which I think is a pretty cool fact. So I think it's a testament to the state that we've got not only a lot of women in beer, but also willing to step up and take a seat at the table and be a leader and advocate for the industry. So, quick background on Denizens Brewing Company. I opened Denizens with my wife, Emily Bruno, and my brother-in-law, Jeff Ramirez, in 2014. Opened the first sort of hybrid production / tap room / brew pub in Montgomery County. We actually got all of the laws changed so that you can self-distribute in Montgomery County and bypass the county government, which, as you guys know, Montgomery County is, well, maybe you don't know, it's the only complete control jurisdiction in the entire country. So we were able to create a carve out for small breweries to be able to sell directly to retailers and consumers in Montgomery County, which has been a huge success, not only to breweries like us, like Denizens, but obviously other breweries around the state, as well as retailers, as well as consumers. So we've always been kind of politically active as a business and tried to sort of step up and take leadership positions and take political stands when we feel it's the right thing to do. We've been operating in Silver Spring since 2014. We expanded in 2019 to a second facility, which is our production house, where we do most of our brewing now. We graduated from a 15-barrel system in Silver Spring to a 60-barrel fermenter system in Riverdale. We can talk about the timing of expanding at that level in 2019, right before COVID hit. So that's been really fun over the past year. But we do everything from ales to lagers to mixed fermentation, barrel aged. We package our beer both in 6-pack, 12-ounce cans and distribute all over Maryland, DC, and Virginia. And also sell in bottle formats as well, some of our higher end specialty beers. And then obviously we've got kegs. Been involved in beer for the past 7 or 8 years, home brewed for a long time before then. I do not make the beer for Denizens. If I did, we would not be in business because I am a terrible brewer. But I did enjoy the process of it. But my brother-in-law, Jeff, is been a professional brewer for well over a decade, and he helms that up for us. And Emily runs all of the business operations, and then I do a lot of the sales and sort of business development stuff, sort of like the outer face of the company.
Julie, you're a good mover and shaker. I think that's a great position.
Or you can say I'm full of shit.
Hey, we all have our best traits.
Yeah, there you go. I'm fun to drink with, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, there you go. We have a couple of really good questions coming in that I want to address in the next couple of minutes. But firstly, I think that it's important that everybody who's watching kind of understand that historically, like before beer became this big commercial engine, it became something that people were truly turning into a business. Women were at the helm of brewing a majority of the beer that was produced. And this historic backbone seems to have been like broken somewhere. So I'm very curious to learn myself where that came from. I don't think we're going to answer that today, but I just want people to understand that this is not a real revolution that women are in this industry. This is something that is kind of built on the backs of women and the hard work that they put into keeping beer in their households and making sure that it was fresh for themselves and their families. So I think that that's pretty cool and admirable. And it makes me even more happy to know that women are still in the industry today and haven't all run from the machismo that runs around and runs rampant through here.
Well, Jim, if I could just step in for a second, I've got a theory on that.
Go for it.
As soon as people realize you could sort of make a buck commercializing beer, men stepped up and did it. You have to remember that it wasn't until the mid 1980s that women in this country literally couldn't get a bank loan without a husband's signature. So not surprised that women have been kept out, especially in industries like this where it's extremely capital intensive. This is not something where you got $50 in your pocket and you can open your doors. Like you're talking about 6 figures, 7 figures that you invest in order to get your doors open, and access to capital is an issue for anyone who, quite frankly, is not a white guy. So it's and I'm not saying every white guy has access to capital, carte blanche, but it's definitely, you can look at the data, you can look at the history of it. If you're, a person of color, you're a woman, you're any type of minority, it's just the access to networks, the access to capital, access to banking is always going to be a little bit more of a hurdle. So that's my theory on it. And hopefully we're continuing to grow towards a more equitable situation.
I think that there's definitely a lot of meat on the bone of that theory, Julie. There is no doubt that access to capital has been a huge issue. I also think that the idea probably that there was like an insiders boys club at some of these breweries that were founded in the 19th century here in the United States, they probably weren't thinking of how they could include women when women were treated as poorly as they were for the first half of our history. I kind of want to leave this up to you. There are topics as women that you guys must kind of have feelings about in the industry. I have questions coming from folks in the comments that I'd like to get addressed. Do we want to just jump off with the comments and see where those take us? Cool. Well, let's start with Maureen, because Maureen is Maryland's beer historian. Maureen O'Prey would like to know, what's the greatest challenge that any of you have faced in the industry? And I think that this would be really great to hear answered. And I kind of have a follow-up on the back of this when we get a chance to address that. So are there any challenges that any of you felt you faced with women?
I'd say for me...
Go ahead, Sandy.
I'd say it's woman, like it's a challenging industry to begin with. But I would say just as a woman, I do a lot of the outside events, farmers markets, and if I'm ever paired up with a male and somebody comes up, they just assume I don't know anything because I'm just a female, who knows anything about beer. And once I start saying, oh well, this is what we do, and this is the hops, and these are the ingredients, and this is the process, and this is what we did during packaging, then they're like, oh, okay. I mean, but it's preconceived notion is probably the biggest hurdle that I've experienced personally.
Trey, you sounded like you had some input.
You get tested constantly on your fermentation, or what styles or how much you really know about beer. Even if the person who's asking doesn't know anything about beer, you're constantly kind of tested on your skills and what you know.
I'm going to take a second to introduce Judy Neff from Checkerspot Brewing. She's joining us this afternoon. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Judy. Oh, she's muted.
Judy, you're still muted.
Sorry. Brewing on a little bit longer than I thought it would.
Can you introduce yourself really quick, just so everybody knows who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Judy Neff. I'm owner and brewer at Checkerspot Brewing here in Baltimore.
Very cool. It's great to have you on, Judy. We were just discussing a question that came up from Maureen O'Prey about challenges that you faced as a woman in the industry. Both Cindy and Trey have shared their kind of feedback from us, and I didn't know if anybody else had anything they wanted to share.
I think I would definitely echo kind of what's already been said. At this point, it's like, I don't know, I've probably been in the industry like the shortest amount of time out of everybody here, but even after so many years, it's like almost funny at this point when that happens to me too, Cindy, like if I'm with my husband or like a male coworker, that it's just the conversation is always directed to them. But I don't know. I kind of try to take that in stride and just sort of laugh it off that like, unfortunately, it's a preconceived notion, but I think that every time that we're able to have those really meaningful conversations with people and show people that we are educated about our products in every aspect, from ingredient to brewing to fermentation to packaging to selling to events. That's like one more person that we're able to educate, one more person whose mind that we're able to change, that maybe they'll look at things a little bit differently. And I think too, having those conversations also helps to show other women that it's okay for you to speak up when you know about things. Like, never dim your light for someone, never pretend that you don't know anything, because you do know, you know what I mean? And that can be taken, you know, we could have a whole nother side conversation about that. But, and I think it also helps welcome women into our industry to see that there's a ton of really badass, strong women in our industry who really know their stuff. And we're ready for all of y'all to come in here. You know, we need more strong women in the industry. So cheers to you guys.
Judy, Judy, you go ahead and answer it.
Okay. I just sort of agree with what you're saying. I've gotten that a little bit here and there. If I was standing next to Rob, my husband, you know, people might start directing questions to him, but he's sort of the first one to say, like, I don't know. And then usually that person who's done that is really embarrassed and, you know, says, oh, I can't believe I just assumed, you know, I feel really stupid now. So I think it'll probably get less and less. But yeah, I think there are more and more women involved, and yeah, keep it on going.
Go ahead, Julie.
Yeah, so I kind of have, I think, sort of like a weird perspective on this, because I mean, yes, I'm a female, identify as female, but I'm also more masculine presenting as a female than sort of like quote unquote typical female, whatever you want to use. So I have a little less of that sort of pushback from people who don't know me. Honestly, people just, I don't think really make any assumptions. I will say though, my wife, Emily, who is, I will steal a word from Sarah, an absolute badass, totally knows her shit. I mean, she is the workhorse of our operation in terms of all of the business operations. Like, whether we're in the black or the red any given month, it is because of the work that Emily is doing. And, you know, when we were doing our build out in Riverdale Park, you know, Emily is a petite woman who is very feminine, and you wouldn't necessarily know the level of badass she is if you were just looking at her from across the room. And she would have these interactions with a lot of the sort of, you know, the construction folks, like whether it was electricians or plumbing or whatever, where they would walk in and just assume that she was not the person who was completely in charge, right? And so she had a constant battle of having to assert herself every time. And I think, you know, unfortunately, that is a thing that, like, it's sort of this weird vicious cycle with women where you have to constantly prove yourself and like sort of overcompensate for the skills you already have. And that can sometimes create conflict that is unnecessary. But it's conflict that wouldn't exist if people just took women seriously right off the gate, right? So, you know, that's something where I know that Emily has experienced a lot. I've experienced a little less of it. But yeah, I mean, it's just, we ought to do better, not just our industry, but I just think the world in general. And I do really, I think that we're all trying to move forward in the right direction, which I appreciate. You know, having panels like this, Jim, is a really good example of the Brewers Association of Maryland itself as a guild, as really taking a leadership stand and saying we need to make sure that we are putting this as a priority. To sort of highlight women in beer is a really important thing.
From my perspective, I mean, I'm not offering the perspective of a person who's been challenged in this industry very often, but I have been the coworker or the spouse of a woman who is being challenged by people about their knowledge and their understanding. And it is always quite a good feeling of schadenfreude to watch how embarrassed people get when they understand that they have royally stepped in it. When they try to challenge people who know more than them about this, or try to make that assumption that because you are who you are, you won't know as much as I do, just from a perspective of I'm looking at you. And I find that to be always quite humorous, and I always take a little bit of glee in the embarrassment that those people walk away with. But that's just me. Jay wants to know what's one piece of advice that each of you would give to the next generation of female leaders in this industry? And I think this is a really great question. And this is going to have a follow-up question from me, just because I think that there are a lot of places in the industry where women are not represented. And I'd like to address that a little bit. So why don't we just go around the horn? Does anybody have any great advice that they want to share with the next generation of women?
I would just say really hard work, but get your hands dirty and do it. Hard work is it's really great, you know. I think it's really underrated. People don't really, you know, understand how great it feels at the end of the day. Like, you've made this product, you've made this awesome craft beer, and you get to serve it to people and have them enjoy it. And you know, it's nice to break a sweat sometimes at work.
I would say raise your hand and always take a seat at the table. And if you have a seat at the table, make sure you're using that seat to advocate for everybody, and advocate for women and, you know, anyone, again, who is not anybody from like a minority position. I think is important to have advocates at the leadership table, and you yourself should be at that table. I mean, if you are crazy enough to start a business, you should be in charge of things. Like, that is a risky proposition. And that is something that, like, someone who has that sort of approach to life, I want you to be in charge. Like, that's just me personally. And I think that we should always have the confidence to step up and be of service and advocate for things that we believe in.
Go ahead, Trey.
Just piggybacking with the rest, I would simply say just don't limit yourself. That's what we scribbled on our board when we first envisioned what we were going to do with this brick and mortar spot. Our only limit is our mind. And, you know, if I had a different type of thinking, I wouldn't have been able to get my welding certifications right out of high school. But not just stop there, but still go ahead and go to college. Trying other things, seeing what does and doesn't work for me, but ultimately knowing that no matter what hand I'm playing in it, I want to be an owner in that part. So absolutely, entrepreneurship, ownership, but just don't limit yourself. You got it.
And what I'll piggyback off of that with is, you know, there's a lot of resources out there. Yes, women are still, for right now, the minority in craft beer, but there are other people there. There's a lot to be learned. And like I said before, it's a great industry. It's super supportive, super helpful. And you can definitely get some advice, some support from everybody ahead of time. And I think Julie said it, piggybacking off of that, is step out of your comfort zone a little bit. I was on the board, never pictured myself being on the board, but I was, and I think I've learned more and gained more from being on the board than the board got from me, unfortunately. But it's get as much as you can out of every resource available, and it makes you a stronger person, and you don't even realize how strong you are until you have to be. And it's true. I mean, you don't want to be put in that position, but when it's up against the wall, it's, oh wow, I can do this, and that's awesome.
I am not smirking because I think that you didn't provide for the board, Cindy. I'm smirking because you were a badass.
Yeah, Cindy, really, come on. I would piggyback off of everybody and say, to Judy's point, if you want to be a boss, if you want to be a leader in your industry, if you want to be a leader in your business, think about the difference between being a leader and a boss, right? And to be a boss is like, okay, that's fine. But to be a leader is to be inspiring, and to be a leader is to use your voice. And to be a leader is to step into that seat at the table. And that takes work. Nobody who's here on this panel is here because, I mean, there is no short amount of luck, at least on my end, but it's been a lot of hard work to get here. And I think the other thing that I would say is a huge piece of advice is find yourself people that can mentor you. Ask tons of questions. I can't tell you how many times I have texted Julie at all times of the day or night to ask her like the wildest stuff. But she and Cindy were so welcoming to me when I went from not receiving the BAM emails to being on the board in like a 6-week period. And to echo Cindy, like I have learned so much from being able to spend time with some really incredible leaders in the industry. Don't be afraid to reach out, drop a Facebook message, send an email, connect with people. There's so many wonderful people in our industry, especially wonderful women. So use your voice, reach out. We're here.
Cindy just mentioned, well, didn't just, but mentioned earlier her interaction with the Pink Boots Society. And I think that they are probably a huge resource for women in the industry and serve as a very good gathering of potential mentors. For all of you who've had experience with them, do you mind sharing kind of what Pink Boots does? Are any of you like regional, not just members, or any of you like, how's their structure set up? Do they have like an organizer or something in the region?
They do. There's like a DC chapter as well as a Maryland chapter. And I think DC sort of encompasses Northern Virginia as well. I know that Lily Schultz, who is one of our brewers at Denizens, she is part of the leadership committee for the DC chapter, just because our breweries are so close to the DC border. It just kind of makes sense geographically for us. But I will also say, I just want to plug this. There's actually a brand new mentorship program that the Brewers Association just launched. It's something that we've been working really hard on for the last year and a half through the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee that Dr. J is in charge of. We literally just launched it like a week or two ago. So if you're looking for mentors in the beer industry, you can fill out an application on the BA's website. There are already hundreds of people that have signed up to be mentors on top of people who have applied for mentorship. So it is something we're excited about as an organization, and I recommend you guys check it out if you're looking for that.
That's a really great point, and I saw that they were rolling that out. I didn't know that it was live yet, so that's great that it's all gone live. And Dr. J is going to be an excellent resource for people to be able to touch base with and learn about all the potential to team up with a good mentor in the area. There was another question here from Jay that I think was a great one, and I wanted to have this kind of piggyback on what we did last year with FeBREWary. With Women's History Month right around the corner, do any of you have Pink Boots Society or Women Brewed beers coming out? Last year, sorry, I live on a drag strip apparently. Last year, Julie, you hosted a beer brew with all women brewers to celebrate FeBREWary. It was the Suffragette Stout. Do any of you have plans to brew anything or release anything in celebration of Women's History Month this year?
Yeah, we're actually hosting a Pink Boots brew on March 8th. We've got a bunch of people coming, so I think I've talked to most of you. I need to talk to you, Cindy, if you guys would be interested. But yeah, it's a big good turnout, and yeah, we're gonna do a hoppy lager with the Pink Boots hop blend. Obviously, give a portion of the proceeds back to Pink Boots. Yeah, Pink Boots has been great. That collaboration brew day is also going to be a time. Amethyst, who works here at Checkerspot, and then Rachel, who works at Duclaw, they have committed to looking towards spearheading, restarting the Baltimore chapter of Pink Boots, because that was sort of one thing that was going on. So before we actually opened the brewery, I tried to be involved with some regional Pink Boots stuff, but everything was in DC and Northern Virginia. So I, got to know some people down there, but people in Maryland, it's a tough drive to get there and back. And we're all really busy too. So it'd be nice to have something sort of up here, maybe a little bit more accessible for the state. So they'll be gauging some interest in that.
Well, and as the state continues to grow with more breweries opening, I think it's more imperative for there to be something kind of local. I was going to kind of shift this and make this a little bit more of a broad industry conversation, we see, I think, growing representation of women in tasting rooms, ownership roles in breweries, in production, working on packaging lines, managing quality assurance labs. I mean, women are playing a lot of roles in the supply aspect of this conversation. I'm curious about why, when I was selling beer for a brewery, very few of my customers and the people I was talking to about making choices at the retail level were women. I'm curious why women worked in those businesses, but none of them were the ones making decisions about what beer was coming through the door. And I still know a lot of beer buyers in the industry, and no offense to any of them who are watching, because they do a great job. Rob, you're the man. But why are there no women when I go into a store who are representing the craft beer section or making the decision about those selections? Do any of you have any insight about that?
No insight. Great question, and it should change.
Now, for you, Julie, I know that you're probably in the beer cellar in DC. I know that that's women-owned and spearheaded by women. They came out of Boston with their first location, then they kind of moved down here, and I know that they're still operating that and are the buyers there. So that's like one retailer of the several hundred that I visited that I can think of who's operated in.
Yeah, Erica's great. So Craft Beer Cellar is actually a franchise started by two women in Massachusetts, and Erica is the franchise owner in DC.
Got it.
But yeah, women owned and operated. And I got to say, Craft Beer Cellar is one of my, again, apologies, Rob. You're great. I like your store as well. But in DC proper, Craft Beer Cellar is really one of my go-to favorite beer shops because the variety is so huge, and there is a it's a focus on quality, but it's also a focus on supporting local, sort of like supporting local and supporting everyone. Like, you'll find beers on the shelves in Craft Beer Cellar that like you won't necessarily find at other mom and pop package stores, right? And I think it's because Erica takes the time to really get to know the breweries and get to know the beer and get to know the story behind it. And I don't know if that's just sort of an example. Again, this is a generic statement. There's obviously exceptions to this, but I think women tend to sort of lead with a lot more empathy and sort of it's relationship based instinctually. And so it works for Craft Beer Cellar. It's like they're like the best beer store in all of DC. And there's a lot of beer stores in DC. But you're right. There are not a lot of female buyers at the retail level, whether you're talking bars, restaurants, or package stores. And that can be, again, you talk about like sort of networks and access to networks and knowing people and, you know, having to like sort of double prove your skill set when you're walking in that door fresh and it's a cold call. You know, if you're a female trying to sell a product, how much more do you need to bring to the table to get that person to pay attention to you? You know, and even on top of that, you know, you're a female, say you're also a person of color going in the door trying to sell your product. And it's just like, how many more barriers to entry do you have? It's just, these are all things that need to be talked about and addressed and tried to work towards fixing. But yeah, there needs to be a lot more female beer buyers out there. And I am hoping that changes over the coming years.
I think that the point that you just made about empathy being part of that decision-making process more from a woman's perspective than maybe from a man's perspective. It may have very good advantages for small breweries, right? If you're building a relationship with the representative of a small brewery walking into your establishment, you're going to get better treatment because you have this relationship that's there. You're going to be valued more because you mean something to the person that you're building this rapport with. And that goes both ways. But and this is not a knock against however the system is set up or how it's being utilized now, but with big distributors, maybe that relationship building at the brand level can't happen quite as often because there's the feeling that they have to represent everything in their portfolio or find the fits that work for that location more than, hey, this is why my product itself is something that would fit with you, Julie, or with you, Sarah. So maybe those are interesting things to think about and see how things might shape up between the retail and supply relationship based on who comes into the picture. Trey's got a point.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been absolutely great for us because we have had the chance to do that with people like, Ken's Filling Station in Baltimore, Off the Rocks, which is a wonderful wine and craft beer store where a Black woman does get to make some of the choices on what comes in. But otherwise, we do get that really personal touch with the people that we reach out to, with the restaurants and liquor stores and any place, what have you, because we can talk to them. We can see what their customers like before we just shoot them whatever we have as our newest product. We want to know what their customers are interested in, how they do their displays, where they're keeping their beer, how they're storing it, are they making sure that they're rotating it? We want to know all of those good things that make it, a great experience for whoever's purchasing it. Going back and making sure that the beer has been sold. And if not, we want to get that beer off the shelf if we don't think it's as fresh and as a proper quality that we want to display for ourselves. So it's actually been a great thing for us to touch base with these people all of the time, drop off a few samples and see what they're really interested in and what their customers will enjoy. So that saves us a lot of beer on the back end that just goes to waste. But it also, really helps them out to see that we care. And whenever they want to call us and say, hey, we need this new brew in, we got them, we're right there. So it's really been a really wonderful mutual experience on our behalf when it comes to direct purchasing.
I don't know if anybody else who's viewing has any more questions for us, but feel free to throw them into the comments section. We'd love to address anything or answer anything that you might be curious about. I was going to ask if there are resources, the mentorship program through the BA, the Pink Boot Society. Is there a resource out there that any of you are aware of for women to be connected with jobs in the industry or kind of employment opportunities, things like that? I know that Beer Culture just released a board for Black beer enthusiasts and folks to get interested with potential job seekers and job providers. Julie, I know you guys have a listing on their job board. So I'm wondering if there's a resource like that might exist for women.
I don't know of any specifically. I don't know if you guys know of any. Beer Culture is great, though. Highly recommend checking that out. And it's Beer Culture with a K.
Correct.
But they have if you are an employer, their job board is totally free. I mean, their whole goal is to make this as accessible as possible, both for employers as well as potential employees. You can post as many jobs as you want. And if you're looking to get into the beer industry, I mean, there's things from, head brewer to director of sales to the delivery driver. Like literally everything you can imagine is posted on that job board. I just don't know of any that are like women specific.
There are some Facebook groups for women in beer, beer and body, Maryland chapter specific, and then they even have subgroups based on interest that you're in. If you want to do working out, if you're looking at the industry, they have it for professionals. Just a lot of different subunits of that as well.
Very awesome. I think that maybe I will do a little bit of research in the next couple of days and see if I can find anything industry-wide that directly supports advancing women in this industry and see if we can get that shared out through some of our stuff.
And there aren't not for a specific job, but if you are looking to own your own business or help your current business that you own or have an ownership in, Alice, it's called helloalice.com. It's a great resource. They have numerous grants, all kinds of tidbits that you can easily apply to seek some money or seek a little bit of liquidity for your company or a startup. And they really try to focus on startups. You don't have to be a startup with a fancy $100,000 plan. They are really looking for someone that they can truly build upon. So Hello Alice is a great resource as well. I would definitely tell anyone, a person of color, Black, what have you, to definitely check that out, because it's just a great resource. And same thing with 8 Trail Pills. They are going to be annually doing their grants, and they're also, it's just for people of color. And as we know, color goes a long way, you know. So just because, you know, you may be a little, you don't look like me, does not mean you're a person of color. Let's get that straight. So please make sure that you're checking them out as well, because they come out annually with a grant. They give away over $100,000. There are a lot of resources as far as if you want ownership. And I'll make sure that I do share those with you as well. But those are 2 that I would definitely check out when you have the time.
Thanks for that. That's a really great point. And I did not intend to make any assumption that women could not be in ownership by suggesting resources for employment. I just know that there are a lot of people out there with a wish to break into this industry, and I want to make sure that everybody has access to what they would need to find the resources. At the very least, if you are a woman who is interested in this industry, keep your eye out for all of the job postings at breweries throughout the state. I know we're in a strange economic situation with COVID, but people are still hiring. People are still looking for great quality and great talent in the people that they're bringing on board. So apply. I hope that you're learning that there is plenty of opportunity for all people in this industry, especially to have a chance to come and work for an exciting business and do really fun things and get to meet great people.
Jim, something I would add to that we've been having a lot of discussions about is, how do we reach more diverse crowds, whether that's women, people of color, you know, what have you, because we all know that craft beer, you made a great point earlier, is you look like craft beer, Jim. I mean, we know, we love you, Jim, but you know, dudes, big dudes with tattoos and beards, like that's beer, right? So something we've been talking about, and I would encourage anyone.
And flannel.
And flannel.
I wore that specifically for this call. I wanted to be every stereotype.
You really
You
look great. But something I would encourage everybody who, regardless of the industry that you're in, but especially those of you who are tuning in who are in the beer industry, is ask around in your community about diverse opportunities to post jobs. Reach out to different schools. Reach out to like we're partnering with some universities. Morgan State University. Talk to people on your team who may be diverse. You know, I was able to talk to our events manager who put together a really successful Melanin Market featuring Black artists. And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't you reach out to this person? Boom. Like, open your channels of communication, because that's the only way that we're going to continue to build on diversity in our industry, is to reach those audiences. And I would also encourage you, if you're hiring, like maybe set an internal standard. Like, I'm not going to start interviews for this position until I have applicants that hit these wickets. And if you're not getting those applicants, then you're not posting your jobs in the right places. You have to reach people. That's so important. So I would encourage everybody to do that. And any suggestions you guys have, send them to the Brewers Association. We would love to share that with our members. Diversity is a big issue, and we want it to be a big initiative. So
info at marylandbeer.org is a great resource. If you have places for our brewers to be reaching out to more people, please send those resources to us. And we would love to share them internally and externally and find ways to connect more people with this industry. I'm getting a lot of affirmation in the comments that I nailed the stereotypical craft beer guy with my outfit today. So I'm glad that I was able to bring that to the talk. You all brought a lot of great perspective. Is there anything else that we should offer to kind of wrap this up? I've got a couple of parting words at the end of this to talk about the talks that we have coming up in the next couple of weeks. But is there anything else happening that you guys want to share? Go ahead, Julie.
I just want to say, generally speaking, don't support women-owned breweries just during the month of March. Don't support Black-owned breweries just during the month of February. You know, don't support gay-owned breweries just in June. This is something where we all need to be supportive year-round. And I just wanted to make sure I said that before we logged off.
I won't have any messaging about just supporting women-owned breweries during the month of March, I promise. And we're not doing that with any other month that's attributed to anybody, because we want everybody to be supported throughout the year, just like you said. That's awesome. We've got some really great comments coming in. And it's funny that Kara just posted a comment. Great discussion. Thank you all for sharing. Kara's going to be involved in a roundtable later on this month. So I'm excited to have her be one of our future participants in a talk like this. So thank all of you for joining me this afternoon. I think this was a really great talk. I think that there is a lot more that we can talk about in this topic, and I hope that we get an opportunity to have a follow-up to this. Judy, I plan to be joining you for your Pink Boots Brew Day to take pictures and document everything that's going on. And I appreciate the hard work that all of you have done in this industry. You make it very easy for me as a craft beer guy to have fun coming into your breweries, drinking your beer, and enjoying all of the great things that you're bringing to the industry. So thank you very much. And for all of your guidance on the board, for everybody who's been involved, and for your participation in BAM. We truly appreciate it. To everybody else who is tuning in this afternoon, if you are interested in finding out more about what's going on in the community of Maryland craft beer, visit marylandbeer.org. Tune in for every Fermented Friday this month. We've got some very interesting stuff. We're going to be bringing up conversations about more diversity and inclusion with some enthusiasts, influencers, business owners, buyers. We have people from kind of every perspective that are going to bring their mindset into what craft beer means to them. We're going to have a conversation with some label artists to see what art means to this community and how they bring their perspective in to support craft beer. And we've got a lot of other fun stuff planned. So thank you all for tuning in. marylandbeer.org for more information, and visit BeerMe, BIERMI.com/store/BAM, and check out those cool fundraiser glasses that we launched this afternoon. They look pretty stellar. Have a great weekend. Stay safe and drink Maryland beer. Bye, y'all.
Cheers.